two kind of larger items on the agenda for today, just as a discussion among CLARE team and the Hub. So thanks, colleagues, for joining us. We were going to start with about the first half of the meeting, so the first 30 minutes or so, with updates on key priorities from each of the hubs, and we'll share a couple updates from M&E and comm side of things as well, just for awareness, and hopefully we can leave a bit of time for any questions. And then we'll spend the second half of the meeting on the discussion topic that I think was raised by the Capacity Strengthening Hub. Heidi will facilitate us for that on kind of supporting CLARE networks going forward, sustainability of those, etc. So welcome, Evelyn. We're just getting started, and I think I will pass maybe to one of the hubs to start. If anyone's really keen, maybe just put your hand up. And I think we've said try to keep it to 5 or 7 minutes. I know I'll be shorter, probably Michelle will be shorter, so we'll still have time for discussion or questions after that. Is anyone from one of the hub teams really keen to kick us off?
I don't mind kicking us off. I wouldn't put it as strongly as really keen, but I'll go ahead. Yeah, in terms of updates from the R4I Hub, there's a lot going on and lots on the cards. We have a bunch of knowledge products that are either coming out or we are working on over the next few months. So on the comm side, we have the impact product from the 2025 outcomes that will be out this week. We have the transformational adaptation paper that's quite developed. I think it's been shared with projects for their review at the beginning of this week. The locally led adaptation brief is quite far along and should also hopefully be finalized soon. Laura is also trying to put together something around the ideas of systematic resilience. So we're trying to see how we can do something relatively short and light touch on our side around that topic. The research for impact learning agenda, we are going to be very busy with that for the next few months to capture the learnings from the projects to develop our manual for applying the R4I principles. We also working with CS on the policy workshop and are potentially going to produce some sort of output or knowledge product from that workshop. So we'll see how the workshop goes and what we think would make the most sense from the content from the workshop. Also on comm side more, we are full steam ahead with Climate Visuals now, who are working with some of the CLARE projects to get some really great photos. The first project has just been done, so that's one of the ASEAN projects, nature-based CLARE, or NB CLARE, sorry. So we've just received the photos from them and they're looking really great. And WASFA and Climate Reef are next up, so we'll be getting some photos from them in the next few weeks. Then in terms of key engagements, we've launched the new public-facing webinar series. So 2 have already happened. The first on policy influence, the second on co-creation happened this morning. Co-creation lab, sorry, happened this morning. Both went really well, really great attendance, really good engagement. So yeah, that's looking really good. And the next one I believe will be the end of the month, which is the second co-creation labs workshop. Also on engagements, we looking towards COP. So we have the partnership with the Resilience Hub. They've let us know that we have a lot of flexibility in terms of what we want to do at COP with the Resilience Hub. We'll definitely have a slot of either an hour or 90 minutes, and we have freedom to develop that how we want. So already starting to look at what our options are there so we can try and give them a clear sense early on so that we have more leeway in terms of dates and duration. And then lastly, our Ops Fund team is also working with lots of the CLARE projects on their Opportunities Fund projects. I think the final ones to be contracted are Urban Tract and Clarity, and we are nearly there with getting them in contract. So there'll be lots of work there. Just a friendly reminder, if anyone's been asked to support with quality assurance, to please support the team there. And the upfront team is also busy working on videos from the Benin Health and Enact work that they traveled to in April. So we'll hopefully soon be seeing some video outputs of some of that work. Yeah, I think that's the main things on R4I list. I see Suzanne and Adele are here, so they can chime in if there is any things that I've missed.
No, it was a very comprehensive job. Thanks, Roy.
Thank you. I think what I would suggest is maybe we hear from both, unless people have really burning want to jump in. People can start to put any questions in the chat that we can address maybe at the end. But I think I would invite, unless there's objections, the Capacity Strengthening Hub to share next, and then we can ask questions or discuss after that.
Yes, happy to do so. And Suzanne, great to have a helper there. Well, since I'm a visual learner, let me share this one slide which is summarizing what we're working on at the moment. And Joel sends his apologies as he was not feeling so well earlier today, and Martin is traveling to the Nairobi event, so hopefully he will make it for the later half an hour. But in view of what the CS Hub is doing at the moment, so first of all, we are mostly busy with the policy influencing workshop, our last in-person event. The co-creation teams for each day have started meeting. There are also quite a lot of project representatives in these co-creation teams. And some of the day themes evolve around like the stock taking, tracking, or understanding also what shapes policy influencing, which is closed by day 5 on a policy dialogue led by AIT. I think some of the IDRC colleagues are also quite involved in the co-creation process. And there will be like a coordination call on Thursday. Also logistically, I think everything is in place with most of the flights booked and supporting visa at the moment. And then at one point we'll be able to share participants list with Heidi, and then also with the group that all of the colleagues know who of the projects will be attending the policy influencing workshop. Then in view on the learning agenda on capacity strengthening there as well, everything is on track. Maybe just to share some of the highlights in view of the development of the competency framework for adaptation research. We're closely collaborating with COCAT to have like these 2 levels of individual and institutional. And there will be a meeting of the core authors of the framework next week. There had been a workshop by CS Hub colleagues, so the framing conditions and framing concepts of the competency framework are set, and then it will be going into the deeper development of the framework. And the outputs are still being discussed, but some of the ideas, as previously said, for example, preparing a guidance document for universities to set up courses on adaptation. Then another one is that colleagues have been a lot engaging on CS approaches. So we have been reaching out to many of or all of the projects in view of capturing capturing the diversity of CS approaches that had been applied across CLARE. And then we had follow-up conversations with CS designers and learners to also understand the learner's perspective and how they have perceived the diversity of CS approaches. And lastly, the GI checklist for CS design and implementation is almost finalized, and then it will be shared with Shannon and the GI working group for endorsement. So we are now really in the core working phase. And as I said yesterday to Heidi already, so the timeline for finalization is not yet like set in stone, but planned within the next 3 months. Then we had a working group meeting last week or the week before. Weeks passed so quickly at the moment, where the outcome was relatively low. We had, I think, 5 project representatives, and we also acknowledged that a lot of the work still goes into the planning of these working group meetings. We're also thinking in view of, well, what are other ways of engagement, also acknowledging that, for example, through the learning agenda, we had a lot of engagement with projects already. So we want to see what we want to do until end of the year. Maybe that working group meetings are maybe at the moment not the best vehicle, as colleagues might be busy, but also then planning a bit more, maybe what could be a final working group meeting, what could that look like, and then from there planning backwards, and then also how we could do that for what are the plans for CLARE Exchange, obviously depending on who will be represented there. But just remembering from last time, I think there was a lot of overlap between CS focal points and the people at CLARE Exchange, also with all the CS focus projects being there. And then lastly, also we wanted to see in how far like some of the learnings could be captured for CS, linking closely to the CLARE evaluation and the capacity strengthening component. In view of the responsive fund and GI collaborative funds, most of them are finalized. Some of them have shared the reports. We also had some nice photos, for example, from ENACT and from the Climate Reefs project, which already concluded, I think, beginning of the year. And then also Palm Trees, they had prepared a really nice video how they worked with women farmers on ecofeminism that they had shared with us. So we will see how we can also distribute that further. Was for project is still to be started, and we were a bit unsure due to the Ebola situation, how that is going to unfold. And then we discussed the idea of possibly having like a joint meeting where we could collect all of the learnings also from the Opportunities Fund, in one hand more structurally, how was the setup of the fund, how was the administration, etc. And then also more on the learning side, for example, for the responsive funds, what were the modalities and CS approaches and what was learned there. Very shortly on the events, tomorrow will be happening, well, I call it the Nairobi meeting, which is like the convening for leaders in climate change research on adaptation and resilience in Kenya. That is organized by the CS Hub and will bring together approximately 40 participants of CLARE program team leaders, FCDO and IDRC representatives. So Joel, Maureen, and Martin will be there. And then we also had one session, or with ACT in the lead, one session accepted in Bonn for the intersessional, merged with 3 other organizations, and Maureen is in the lead for the concept on sustainable frameworks for climate resilience and adaptation capacity strengthening. And then Joel mentioned that they are very much looking how they could already prepare some of the work for the COP32, which will be happening in Addis. Maybe that, and I'm just checking in if maybe Joel had the chance of attending. No, unfortunately.
No, but I don't see Joel, but thank you, Elena. That's really helpful to hear everything happening on the capacity strengthening hub front. So thank you for that. I think momentarily we want to open it up if there are questions. I've seen one from Ariane that we can consider. Michelle, is there anything you want to add from the comm side of things, just for awareness before we go into questions or discussion?
Yeah, I can add a couple things. And I was also just going to say, Alana, please do keep me in the loop with the video and things like that. I'd be happy to put them on the CLARE website and disseminate them from social media and whatnot. So please let me know once those are ready to be shared more broadly. You will also see, as Roy mentioned, the climate visuals photos. I put the link to the drive in the chat. Laura also kindly picked out some of the nicer ones. So I will put those in the chat just in case you don't want to go into the share folder, but that will give a sampling of what the others will look like. From a comms perspective, some of the upcoming events that we're looking at, in addition to the Nairobi meeting that Elena talked about, We also have a session at Innovate for Cities that is taking place on June 22nd. So we'll have Joseph Kimani speaking on behalf of Urban Tracks and 2A at that, as well as I believe one speaker from Equally Africa who will represent ENACT at that. That session has been merged with someone from the movement for community-led development as well, but it's shaping up quite well. We also will have a bit of a presence at London Climate Action Week, but it will be quite limited. We'll have a speaker, Gina Zierbogel, will speak at a session with the Resilience Hub. Other than that, we also have the International Coral Reef Symposium coming up in July. It's only climate reefs that will be there, but they had, I think, 20 sessions accepted. So they will have a pretty large presence there. So looking forward to doing some support with that. It's kind of their miniature adaptation features. Beyond that, you'll also notice a couple cosmetic changes to the website. So you'll now find on the homepage of the website, we have a featured section, which is a nice place to go just to see, whatever we're showcasing on the website. It's a lot of programmatic news, but we're doing our best to mix it, programmatic news with stories of change as well. So you can scroll through that featured carousel just to see whatever is on the website. We've also been rolling out a couple changes on social media as well, trying to showcase more programmatic content, especially now that we do have so many resources to share, and that we want to circulate more than once. So just to say, keep an eye on our social media. Please do like and engage with the content. It is helpful. And on Wednesdays, we're always sharing programmatic content. So whether that be circulating the briefs or circulating information about the webinars, that kind of thing. We have that coming out every Wednesday. I think Roy mentioned the impact product that Laura has been leading on, but I spoke to her this morning about it, and it's almost entirely done. And so that's really exciting because we will be using some of the content from that impact brief on social media as well, on the website in different ways. So really looking forward to getting that out. That will also allow us to promote the stories of change on social media as well, because as part of that impact product, the designer put together cards that really nicely summarize highlights from those stories. So we will start rolling that out in the coming days and weeks. And then just to quickly mention as well, as I'm sure Haley will note, the M&E cutoff data deadline is June 5th, so we'll start putting together some stories of change once we have that come in as well. So that will be a priority that we have once we can start working on that, once we have the data. So I think those are the additional notes I had. I can pass it back to you, Haley. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. So I'll maybe add very quick notes on M&E, but welcome questions. We had one from Ariane, questions or inputs, I guess, that you'd like to discuss based on what we've heard from colleagues. As Michelle mentioned, this is the month that we get started on reviewing all the program level data and consolidating it for the annual review with FCDO. So Amanda and myself are being buried in data as we speak and look forward to working with that over the next month or so and feeding back to colleagues. The stories of change are one of the pieces that we'll be working on another round based on what we see through that process. And the other thing just to keep on radars is the ongoing program evaluation. So I'll just put in the chat the backgrounder that we shared with PIs and coordinators. It's on CLARE Base. Just as a reminder of the questions that are ongoing now, we're expecting reporting on those in July 2026, which we'll be able to share with the CLARE community, one on capacity strengthening of research users and how CLARE is contributing to that, and one on research quality, which looks across a multitude of dimensions of research quality, more focused on the sphere of control, and they're working with a sample of 8 projects per question on those. And then towards the second half of the year, they'll be doing 2 additional questions. One, assessing CLARE's critical contributions to results and impact, including transformational change. We're hoping there that they can use as much as possible secondary data. We'll have quite a lot from M&E sources over the last few years, but we'll see. They may need to complement that with interviews. And then there will be a question as well on GEI specifically, so looking at factors that contributed to cases where gender equality and inclusion were strongly integrated and where there may be GEI transformative change. So that's in the background or at the link. But maybe we can just open to questions. I think especially for our Hubs colleagues, from our Hubs colleagues, also welcome. But put up your hand and please do jump in. Happy to allow some time for questions. And if I don't see a hand, I'm going to ask Ariane to come in on his point about connecting with Claire at the end, but maybe Heidi go first and Ariane on deck.
Thanks. Just a follow-up to the point about the opportunity with the Resilience Hub at COP that Roy mentioned. Just to say, in a call with Shireen and Graces from the IPCC Special Report on Cities project, they're looking at the opportunity to showcase lessons from supporting chapter scientists. And so we're trying to figure out if that could be possible. I reached out to a colleague from Welcome because they are funding support to chapter scientists in the broader AR7 across the three working group reports. So just looking to explore that, but I wonder if there's an opportunity with the UK pavilion or something FCDO is doing, just given Welcome is also based in the UK. So yeah, how do we stay coordinated around planning for COP and get a sense of what other partners are also planning, what might feed into that Resilience Hub session or what we just want to have on our radars anyway. Thanks.
Thanks, Heidi. Does anyone want to address that before we go to Ariane? I don't know if Roy, Michelle, Suzanne, if anyone is best placed to respond on Resilience Hub.
Michelle, do you want to come in there? Because I have a feeling what I will say will be some of that.
I wasn't going to talk about the Resilience Hub, but just
no,
overall.
More general though.
Yeah, overall, just overall coordination on COP31. Just to say that Laura and I did have a conversation this morning about reissuing or issuing another event survey soon, really with the focus being on trying to get a sense of who will be at COP31 in the near future. So just to say that is one vehicle for doing that. And then, yeah, I think getting some kind of organization around how we keep track of all of that sooner rather than later. But that's a pretty small thing to do. So maybe I'll kick it back to Roy to talk more about the resilience stuff.
Yeah, so I was going to say it's similar to what's been done in the past with those, like just having an Excel sheet where we know who's there, but maybe then expand it to include in all submissions that are potentially being made and to what pavilions or what forums. Yeah, the top of like gut instinct is I don't know if the IPCC stuff would be quite what Resilience Hub wants, because they have quite specific themes that they craft out every year, and it's usually not that focused on the more science-based side and the capacity side. It's a lot more delivery side. So I suspect they wouldn't be as interested in the IPCC stuff, but I'm curious whether Shireen wouldn't have insights as to whether I know in the past there's been an IPCC pavilion. Is that not happening still or not an option potentially?
Just quickly, yeah, she's liaising with their comms people around that as an opportunity, but I think also looking to see how to reach other people, I suppose, beyond those particularly interested in the IPCC. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I see Suzanne might want to come in on this point and something we can also keep in touch on. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Sure. So the Resilience Hub have said that we have carte blanche to design the session as we want. They feel that CLARE as a program is aligned enough with the Resilience Hub themes that we don't have to contort ourselves too much. But still said, whether IPCC is the main focus area that we want, is I think, we need to decide what speakers we have. So I think doing the poll soon, Michelle, is a great idea to make sure that we get the best possible speakers. Sorry for our intruder in the background. But yeah, that's just a quick update.
Great. Thanks very much, Suzanne. And indeed, great to stay in touch about all of this as well. And it'll be good to see what we get from the event survey. So welcome to our additional participant. Maybe I'll go to Ariane on the point that he had raised in the chat, which was about connecting with CLARE ASEAN. Did you want to come in on that point, Ariane?
Thanks. Yes, and great to see everyone. Webinars, I was happy to join both. I think they're going really, really well. Great numbers, great presentation. So congratulations on that. CLARE ASEAN, it's more for R4I colleagues. I mean, it's not that CS Hub not relevant, but I think you're closer to CLARE ASEAN because you have somebody very close and you'll be meeting with AIT that leads CLARE ASEAN. It's of course contributor to the event in Bangkok. Very briefly, CLARE ASEAN, Roy attended the meeting. It's now at a stage where all the reason, I mean, it's very late in the CLARE cycle. It's a second group of projects. It is right in the middle of now 4 projects working across in total 21 partners work on that now, I think. So in effect, AIT is kind of a hub as well. That all that is not that relevant, except for there's a lot of material that's going to come out of that as well, and very late. That's something that we collectively need to think about, right? What materials that come very late, and the research still in the middle, and they've now started a very, over the coming 6 months, very intensive program of what is kind of research for impact activities. The reason they organize it the way they do is because they're very close to the ASEAN Secretariat. Roy, you will remember that, and a lot of emphasis on targeting the information directly to the people in the these are people that joined the ASEAN working group on climate change. And they just, the most important thing to say is like they have now started their webinar series, and the first one had over 500 people signed up, and they had to close down the signing up process because they were afraid the system would. And out of that, maybe 150 show up. 250 actually showed up. 150 stayed, and 80 people responded to the survey. Most of them said we wanted more of this. So it suddenly sprung from like we don't know where it's going to an enormous very intensive program of activities, and I think I don't know what to do with this, right? But I want to encourage you to kind of make sure you have a look at that, right? They run this independently, but I also feel it's really, really important that we connect it. How to do that exactly, given each project or each person's work program is really hard to say, but please keep having a look at it, see what connections can be made, any suggestions that you have, right, in terms of like, hey, you run webinars, so the way if you see theirs, you want to make suggestions, practical, methodological, whatever, please let me know, and hopefully we can look for ways in which we can make sure that it is being brought together. Brought together is too strong. I love all the different parts of it. They don't need to come together, but there's opportunities for synergies, I think, that we can explore if we can find the time to connect. Make sense?
Thanks, Ariane. Thank you for that, Ariane. I don't know if anyone from Hub teams want to respond to that now, or it's something we reflect on and take forward, but I'll give a minute for anyone who may want to come in on that.
Yeah, it's a good point, because they are AIT, that is like a hub of its own, and being on the further side of the world, the time zones don't always work out for them to interact with us in our regular scheduled engagements. So I think there's probably a lot of value in setting up a hub coordination, we can call it that, with them, just to check where they are, because yeah, I think from our side we'd really be interested in hearing like the updates that are coming from the projects and how things are going. So yeah, my instinct would be that maybe it's worthwhile to set up a coordination, and I will be in Bangkok at the end of the month, so I can chat to Shibukar Supert in person and see how they feel about setting up a call with. I think they are quite close with Biplav, but maybe we can set up an official hub call with the three of us.
You know what, Roy, I think the best and easiest is if you feel comfortable, right? Just reach out to Shobakar, right? Say you know, we like just to share what you're doing and see what comes out of that, right? It doesn't need to be, you know, I want to minimize the extra workload and make these connections, right? And so for example, I see like, you know, they have the list of participants. You have yours, and see if and how we can combine those networks, right? Like we don't have to, but it'd be great if you can have that conversation and see what we can do. Yeah. So please, I mean, you know him well by now. Please just reach out directly. Just let me know how it goes. And
Thanks.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Ariane, for raising that. I think, yeah, as Roy said, there might be some natural points in the coming month with all of us convening in Bangkok as well. So I think it's helpful to have on our radars. It makes me wonder if we should be inviting Shobakar to these calls, Ariane. Maybe that's too far. I know they're very busy and the time wouldn't work. But in any case, something good for us to think about, while also keeping in mind also our hub colleagues here will be winding down towards the end of the year, but we have some time before then. I think maybe on that note, and it might be on the point of networks that Ariane mentioned at the end, maybe a good segue to our second agenda item. If there are other questions, do feel free to put them in the chat, as I'm sure Hub colleagues can answer those, or CLARE colleagues if they're for us. But I'll pass to Heidi to introduce the next discussion. Actually, maybe before I do, just to say we didn't do GEI updates today. I see Shannon has joined us, but she's flagged there could be a whole agenda on hearing from the GEI working group and what they've learned through that experience. So maybe for a next Hubs call, but we won't try to cover that today with our limited time. So just to Heidi, I think, for the next item.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and I think it is a good segue from some of the points that you've raised, Ariane. The idea for the next 25 minutes is to follow up on this question that came up in one of my recent check-ins with the CS Hub, which was how over the months that remain how do we sort of set things up as best as we can to help sustain some of the networks and relationships that have been developed through CLARE? You know, it's a really diverse community, so we know there's not like one single community of practice or existing network that it makes sense to direct people, but is there something that we can do to help people sustain these relationships after CLARE? I think at this point, it's a really initial brainstorm. So we welcome any thoughts, any questions, examples of what worked well in past programs, etc. And then, you know, we can take things forward and probably loop back on this at a future meeting. One question that came to me is how could people continue to use some of the infrastructure that was built through CLARE, if that's a useful way to find one another, whether the directory through CLARE base or some of the groups that have been established. And if I understood correctly, when we discussed this yesterday, Haley, we will have the make a last subscription payment for groups and CLARE in November, which would extend sort of the life of that system until November 2027, which would mean people could continue to use that that platform to connect, to share opportunities and resources, etc. But we wouldn't be able to add new accounts or have additional technical support once the program was closed, if I understand correctly. So that's one option, which makes me think, like, if we think people will realistically use that, do we want to make a push for people to create profiles and to make sure they're set up on CLARE if they aren't already, or just make sure we offer that option before it's kind of too late. Yeah, and just opening the discussion. What could we do? What opportunities do you see? What examples do you know that could work well moving forward once the program is closed? I don't know if from the CS Hub side you've had a chance to discuss further following that initial discussion. And welcome, Joel. I see you were able to join. Thanks, especially given how busy it is planning for tomorrow. Alana, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Heidi, for kicking that off. Unfortunately, Martin cannot be here, who was the initial proponent of bringing this in, but we had a conversation earlier. So I'm trying to bring across what we had discussed to the best extent possible. Again, I have some slides. Sorry about that. We had some thinking about potential, like how the discussion could be kicked off, let's say. And basically, we started by thinking about what shall be maintained after CLARE's ended, basically. And then Heidi, as you had already said, certainly like all the networks and the relationships between the individuals and their organizations. We also thought, well, how can we also jointly have like one position in view of influencing different spaces? What could be like a joint messaging as CLARE, for example, but also in view of what is the scaling potential afterwards, etc. So basically, that was like one of the first questions: what actually do we want to maintain? And then the second question, then also, what is the ambition level? Or what shall be the level of connectivity? And then, for example, like having this shared IT space, let's say, that could be one component, but basically what shall be the depth of staying connected? Then obviously also the follow-up question is, how can we stay connected? Because like depending on the different levels, this would have like varying implications in view of organization. For example, if we say we want to stay very closely connected and organized, then like I think we would need a central figure, organizational hub that also maintains these connections and institution also afterwards, and have like one facilitator of these spaces. So basically, we thought about it as being a little bit at a spectrum, from being a very centralized space to being decentralized. It could be also formalized or staying engaged informally, and then having, for example, CLARE as like one voice or one identity, as more like a standalone artifact, let's say. I don't know what to call it, or whether we want to have it more integrated into already existing frameworks like the ARA a network, or also, I mean, also RN as an example, who is so there are already like some adaptation research spaces that we could also like integrate into, let's say. I have another slide, but maybe I stop here for now.
Great, thanks, Alana. That's helpful, actually. And makes me wonder, I mean, I get the sense that there are those who will maintain their networks that are relevant to them, on their own. So the question is like, what additional initiative might be welcome and might add value to the work that people will do anyway. Yeah, Roy, over to you.
Yeah, I'm not so much a response, but a question actually for RDRC. So I mean, when we talk about maintaining the network, we can talk about like maintaining existing partnerships, but then also the network of potential partners. And like what's quite clear in CLARE is that there's really strong partnerships and like almost identities that have come from Korea. And I'm wondering, was there anything IDRC did to support that sustainability, or was that just natural? Because, yeah, I think that's the sweet spot to really try and figure out how do we support that legacy identity almost.
Great question. And I had a similar question about whether a similar dynamic and similar sort of relationships have persisted beyond for the Future Climate for Africa, the FCFA program that I know South North was super involved in. I get the sense, but Bruce and Michele might be able to come in here. I get the sense that, CARIA, while the projects were very large, the program was not so large. And therefore, developing those relationships and carrying those relationships forward was perhaps a bit easier. I could be wrong. But Bruce or Michele, anything to report on whether you feel Caria did something that facilitated those relationships being sustained beyond the program end?
Well, we haven't really, but you're completely right to say that we had very large projects that were mini programs in themselves, and they had developed their own network. So maybe they felt also that it was not so critical for them to have like support at the program level beyond the end of the program. Now, there were also different times. They knew that another program was going to be there maybe a year later, or so they used that time to maintain connections and to maybe prepare for another round. In this case, it's a bit more uncertain, the situation. They know that there will not be another phase, and they are looking at how these, maybe being embedded in a large network could increase the chances or the opportunities to, to learn about new call for proposal, to learn about new ways to raise funds. So these are the questions that I mean, for instance, I'm asked right now. I wasn't asked these questions at the end of CARIA. Yeah.
Maybe I can just quickly respond to SFA. Yeah, Suzanne did mention that there were some legacies from SFA with fractures that spawned mechanics and tour and repressor. That's also a large contingent from FCFA. I would say though for FCFA it's slightly different in that we don't see very similar teams that were in FCFA that are now CLARE projects as well. I think FCFA almost splintered. So I think it was the Southern leadership that really was championed more this time. So we saw a lot of the key learnings and lessons that the Southern partners in FCFA didn't have as large a role in FCFA have now come on to CLARE projects as much more central key players across CLARE. So it's been like a outward spread, but I wouldn't say the to some extent there's still those network connections, but in I feel at least that it fractured a lot more. It's not like the very clear progression where you could see Fractal gained a few members and became Tua Pamoja. You can see like the learnings are there, but the team shifted slightly. So yeah, I can't say exactly why it was different in IDRC, but I think it was also the shift to promoting Southern leadership in CLARE did also have a big influence on how that shifted, because FCFA was quite strongly UK led. So Fractal was the strongest in terms of Southern leadership, and you can see that a lot of those partners and those networks were sustained to some extent.
Okay, there's lots of people adding into the chat. Does somebody want to speak to anything that they put in the chat? I don't know, Shannon, if you want to speak about Southern Voice. Yeah.
I was really just to share the link and the idea. I don't think we need to go in depth on it today, but we could certainly talk about it more if we were thinking about like how these communities of practice come together as big programs are winding down, and maybe aligned with that, like how we create spaces for these moments to happen, like at our upcoming exchange in September. Yeah, so it was just more an example for the moment.
Great. And I'm actually glad that you mentioned CLARE Exchange, because it makes me think, what are the opportunities to actually just engage with the CLARE community around this question, whether it's at CLARE Exchange, whether it's within each of the working groups that we've been facilitating. And in the conversation with the CS Hub, we recognized, wow, we should plan toward some sort of closure of those working groups to kind of revisit what everybody's achieved together, what has been the value, what were some of the strengths and challenges, et cetera, and maybe open that question of like, how would people want to stay connected within those working groups? Something I think for all of us to think about together and individually, depending on the nature of the different working groups. I'll also just put in the chat something beyond the lifespan of CLARE is the What Works Climate Solutions Summit that will take place in April in Cape Town, and will be hosted by Ascend, who leads the Baobab project, so the new synthesis center based out of University of Cape Town. So we might also see that there are particular opportunities, not in the so distant future, that might give reason for people to connect, to present their work in a joint way, and to continue to network beyond the CLARE program lifespan. Ariane?
Thanks. Yeah, CLARE Exchange of course, a good moment to talk about it. At the same time, it's very easy to start raising expectations, right? As like and in fact, the conversations that I have, it's almost it's late in the evening. It's almost like breakup conversation, right? It's not you, it's me, kind of like I tell people, do not rely on this, right? It's like this is the sport we've given, and unless we make it 100% clear that there shouldn't be any expectations, it's almost as like, well, use what you have to broaden your field, right? Don't let's not. Yeah, like I said, I fully agree. We should explore it to the best. I'm not optimistic that much will remain, and I think that's a good thing as well, right? Because people have to move on after something like this. The more we now do to help people get connected to other opportunities, right? That in a way is not a contradiction, but like I said, like many of my conversations with partners now is like, yeah, like I can help you find an entry point here or there, right? So it's almost like pushing them away, and I don't mean it like that, but I see you nodding, so I hope it was clear ID.
Yeah, how to ensure people move on Like a parent-child relationship,
it's not you,
but not
it's
exactly.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, I think it is important not to raise expectations, and yet I think it also is there is an opportunity with the strength of this CLARE community to help people tap into those networks that may be very relevant to them beyond, right? So to me, like if CLARE base is still useful for circulating sort of CLARE specific opportunities and information, then that seems like it could be worth a push to tell people to get an account, to stay connected that way. A fairly simple thing, not just an idea. Haley and then Alana.
Thanks. I'll try to be short, but yeah, I think like I don't think we're in a position to force it essentially, right? Like we won't be able to actively support much beyond 2027, but it's almost like we could offer bridge networking. Like there won't be bridge funding as far as I'm aware, but like the networks remain there. As you say, we could invite people to get accounts before the support and the program ends. And if there's a will to kind of continue sharing through there to figure out how they might take some of that work forward in other places, I think that's a great use of it. But I think it's really important, Shannon's point, for example, about Southern Voice, like that was very partner-led, demand-led. So I think that's important to keep in mind and kind of gauge as well. If people have other means of doing this, that's also okay. Thanks.
Yeah, we were also just thinking in view of, as you have said, like what networks are already existing, but also maybe there will be another funding opportunity that someone steps into coordinating role or like facilitator role, which is not IDRC in this case. So maybe looking also out for these sort of opportunities, which then also brought us to the point of, well, at least I mean the funding landscape is a bit difficult for adaptation at the moment. So basically also we thought of what are other opportunities out there? Is there a need that we or many of the actors also move into like blended finance approaches, etc.? And what are basically the capacities on these sort of financing models, etc.? I mean, we have been like a lot of the projects I think have been relying on grants, but I mean they're getting less at the moment, and I think many organizations are in this position as I mean I'm not really sure how it is for universities, but at least for NGOs, etc., the space is getting a bit difficult. So how can we also team up together and not fall into this trap of like rivalry and like going for the same funds and then like, you know, like hoping that we get it and you don't, but kind of jointly see as an adaptation community how can we get joint funding, whether it's also like for blended finance approaches. And then also like this also brings me a bit to like the joint messaging, because we're all here for the same cause. And that is like worldwide looking a bit tricky at the moment. So maybe also seeing whether there will be maybe some meeting in view of like knowledge or skill development for finance opportunities. I don't know, just yeah.
That point about financing resonates with the point that Ariane had raised in the past. You know, to what extent have teams articulated the financing rationale maybe for some of the work that they have either piloted or advanced, and do we have a role to play in this space? I don't know, Ariane, if you want to speak to that further, or perhaps this is something that might come, I wonder if this might come up in the policy influencing discussion, or yeah. You've unmuted, so let's go to Ariane and then to Michele after.
Very quickly. No, I indeed, I was going to type it out, but it takes longer. Alana, I'd love to hear more. And just to add that there are one project and one sub-project in our cohort that actually focuses on finance. So it's been on my mind too, and I've been asking people like, what is the relevance of that work for the rest of CLARE? And but I haven't quite been able to figure out how we can usefully organize a conversation. So I'm going to reach out to you, see if you have any thoughts. And yes, I mean, great thing to discuss in Bangkok as well, right? Policy influence. Finance is also a way to scaling, right? That's how I would put it. Think about the ecosystem that we're trying to promote. Michele, over to you. Thanks, Alana. Good idea.
Sure, thanks. I just have a small comment also linked to what Alana said. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that were discussed in the sustainability session of the final countries and represent consortium meetings was precisely about how to approach financing institutions or funding sources that are not the traditional donors, and how to use resources that are not grants, but there were some examples that were discussed, especially during the Represa meeting, because, for instance, the Global Change Institute at the University of Witwatersrand, who is one of the lead organization in Represa, works a lot with banks, and part of their budget as an organization, their core budget comes from private sources. We also discussed the opportunity of capitalizing on the new knowledge that is coming from Represa and mechanics to raise private finance through the Africa risk capacity. However, the message that in general I got from these meetings is that researchers would like they are not exactly sure whether they know how to approach these non-traditional funding sources, and so who they are, where they are, how to approach it, and also how to approach it without compromising to the ethical integrity of the work they do. So I think, I mean, this is something almost everybody I spoke with in the last months is grappling with. So I don't know how, but if we could discuss and put our minds together on how to support some projects on or some of our researchers on this thinking between now and March and beyond, that would be, I think, one very important point. Thanks. Over.
Thanks, Michele, for sure. It's really helpful to hear those particular examples, actually. And it strikes me that we have the opportunity maybe to network within IDRC to see if there's lessons learned around this. I mean, it's not necessarily in the same space, but some of the colleagues who, for example, have worked on approaches to scaling, whether it's agricultural technologies and solutions, might have some insights here. And I don't know on the South-South-North CDKN side if there's also insights that could be useful to share from other work in this space, or from step change on the climate finance for locally led adaptation, if that's also a nice space to come together. Given it's 10:31, let's wrap the discussion here. It's been really nice just to chat about this, just to brainstorm and hear ideas. And I mean, I think we can each take some of this discussion forward as we're interacting with various partners as well, and see what might be appreciated as a way to connect people, recognizing that we don't want to raise expectations. There's only so much we're likely to do, but what might be fairly low-hanging fruits for supporting this community that we've been on this journey with for the last number of years. So thanks everybody for coming together. If there are topics for future discussions that come to mind, feel free to share, and have a good rest of your day. Especially good luck to Mercy, Bruce, Joel, those of you coming together in Nairobi for the event tomorrow. We look forward to hearing about how it goes, and to being in touch through the various activities that we're all busy with.